Good evening. It is Tuesday, February 8th at 5:30. We do not have a full dais, but we do have a quorum, so I'm calling this meeting to order. We will be going into executive session to discuss the following item listed under 2A. City Council shall convene into closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071 and 551.087 to seek the advice of legal counsel regarding the enactment of economic development policies, approval of a support services agreement with the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation, and related matters. It is 5:30 and we are in executive session. All right, it is 6:31. We are out of executive session. We're on the second page of the agenda on item number 3. Take any necessary or appropriate action on matters posted for consideration in closed executive session. We will not be voting on anything as a result of executive session, which means that we get to go right on to item 4. Councilmember Peterson has joined us, so we have a full dais, and I am calling this meeting to order. And we were hoping to have Breland, Coleman, and Brody Bolding. Last call. Man, I'm sorry that we're missing out on meeting them. They were from the Cedar Creek Intermediate Youth Community Leaders. So in their absence, I will ask Mayor Pro Tem Nelson if he would please lead us in the pledges. If you please rise. Outstanding job, Mayor Pro Tem Nelson. If you would remain standing, we have Pastor Hellman from the Calvary Baptist Church. He's also the chair of the Bastrop Chamber, chair-elect of the Bastrop Chamber. So if you would please join us.
Will you pray with me? Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us, and even for this opportunity that we have together here today. God, we thank you that we get to be part of this amazing community that we call Bastrop, Texas. We thank you for the people that make it so very special. We thank you for all of the amazing things that you are doing in our community, and even as we look to the future, the amazing things to come. And God, I do want to say a special blessing for our leaders in our community, God, for our mayor, for our city council, for our city employees, God. And I thank you that they have a heart to serve this community and see it become the best that it can be. And God, I especially want to pray a little blessing on Mr. Nelson tonight as he finishes up his time here and goes on to greater things in the future, God. And so, God, I ask for wisdom tonight for our city council and for all who are here, and pray that in all that we do, we bring glory and honor to your great name. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor. You may all be seated. All right, that brings us to presentations. Item 7A, presentations acknowledging the service and contributions of outgoing Mayor Pro Tem Lyle Nelson. Colin, why don't we put up my slide, please? So I won't take long. I know we have kind of a busy agenda, but I've been waiting for this, so I'm gonna I have just a few things to say. One of the first things to clear up is there is a lot of people that think we've known each other for a very, very long time. This is absolutely not true. We met, Councilmember Jackson, you will appreciate this, in the kitchen of Kerr Community Center in February, March of 2017, because we had both decided to run for public office for the first time in our lives. Neither one of us had ever run for office. That's where we met. And so a lot of people that think we've known each other for a long time, that's not at all true. So during that time, since that time, I was elected as the first female mayor of the city, and Mayor Pro Tem Nelson went through the first ever runoff of a city council. Never had a runoff before. They didn't. It was a hot mess to even get the thing scheduled. They'd never planned on a runoff before, but Lyle was in the very first runoff. We started going to TML. I got my CMO in 2017, and not that he's competitive, but when we were there in February of 2018, he said, "How'd you get that?" And I'm going to do that too. And so we have every year since then, both of us have gotten our CMO. He has been a dedicated worker for the Parks Board. He was the liaison for the Parks Board for quite a while, which is why you see him lifting weights and working out with Terry Moore and I. He served on the Hunters Crossing Board, and one of the main things that he's done is taking care of representing the city of Bastrop's interests for Campo and Capcog, and is very knowledgeable about how those operations work, and we have very much benefited from that. My claim to fame when it comes to Mayor Pro Tem Nelson, who has a really bad habit of wearing Aggie clothes a lot, and I wish Councilmember Ennis was here so that he could see, Colin, if you'll go, there you go. The story on that was it was homecoming. We were all getting on the float. Councilmember Nelson at the time had on his A&M shirt. Councilmember Ennis walked up to the float and said, "Oh, ho, ho, no way." Walked back home to put on his UT shirt and come back, because he was not going to have only an A&M shirt on the float. So I had to include that picture. But people who have been around us, one of the things that Lyle is not shy at all about saying, and it's a little backhanded, and I'm going to say it, and you'll appreciate the kind of relationship that we have. When people ask Lyle, "So how do you guys know each other?" Lyle tells them, "I am the sister he never wanted." So just let that sink in for a minute. So we are good friends now. We've been through some highs and lows together. I wish him nothing but the best. And there's P&Z, and there's some folks in the audience. I see a couple of our planning and zoning commissioners. Remember when we drove all around when we were working on the B3? We all loaded up on the bus. And so I tried to do representation across the 4 years and 9 months that he has been a part of our council. So I'm going to miss him on council, but I know that I have a friend for the future. And I have a brother that I really like, so he's just sort of an extra brother. I won't say a brother that I never wanted. So Lyle, I'm going to miss you. That's the bottom line. I want to give everyone else an opportunity. Councilmember Peterson, would you like to say anything to Mayor Pro Tem Nelson?
Yes, Lyle, I'd like to say thank you for your service with the council. You've been a great friend and will continue to be until the wheels fall off. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Rogers.
Well, I want to thank you for your guidance. You were always I can always turn to you, and you're always calm and like, okay, think of all these different things before you blow your temperature. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So, I mean, out of everybody's all talking, we're deciding to do this, and he'll like, wait, hold it. Did anybody think of all these things? And we're like, oh, no. So I appreciate the wiseness that you have brought to this council, and I will definitely miss it, and I will miss pushing you little notes about the mayor across.
They do pick on me. They absolutely do pick on me. Councilmember Crouch?
I just want to thank Lyle for being a great role model for anybody else that wants to come up and run for council or be on council. He's done a great job, is very even-keeled, and is a good role model for that. And then wish you luck and everything that you're about to go do. So thanks for being a great role model for that.
Councilmember Jackson?
I just want to thank Lyle for the service that he's provided to the city and representing us on those other boards with CAPCOG and with the air quality. I mean, I've forgotten the name of the board now, but your service beyond the community has really been appreciated, and taking the extra step to be certified as a municipal official is very important, I think, and I'm so glad to know that you have done that for so many years as well. So thank you so much, and I haven't served with you that long, but I'm going to miss you as well.
Thank you, sir.
City Manager Hoffman?
Thank you for that opportunity. I would like to say a few words of thanks representing the city staff team to Mayor Pro Tem Nelson, not repeating all of the wonderful words council members and the mayor have already conveyed, but I will echo the appreciation about the service with CapCog and Mayor Pro Tem's knowledge of regional jurisdictions and how that funding works. That really has had tangible benefits for the community, will continue to. I too appreciate being able to take questions to Mr. Nelson about how we should best frame things, and he is, again, I'm being repetitive, thoughtful, concise, never misses anything, is always able to get to the bottom line of an issue, always respectful, has served very well as Mayor Pro Tem. I think the Planning and Zoning Commission has benefited from him as well. Hunter's Crossing, I'm not sure people understand the complexities of and the history of what the city's had to do with the Hunter's Crossing financing situation to get all that straightened out. Councilmember Rogers and Mayor Pro Tem Nelson have really dived into that, understand it really well, have a great perspective. So on behalf of the city staff team, thank you very much, and Godspeed. Thank you.
All right. Well, I would like to give you a card and a round of applause.
Really nice blue box.
There you go. Bastrop Blue.
Cool. What am I told you my name is misspelled?
Yeah, that was miracle. Do you have any words you'd like to share? Because we are going to take a quick break for a reception for you. And I think we've got some cookies out in the lobby, but want a chance for you to address everybody before we take a quick break.
I've served with 8
You got to turn on a microphone. There's that thing. Yeah.
I've served with 8 people on this council and have enjoyed every minute of it. I get a chance to correct the mayor. It's been 4 years, 7 months, and 11 days. Not that I'm counting, but it's just one of those deals. I picked up one of my old push cards, and one of the things it said on there was, I care deeply, infrastructure, drainage, roads, wastewater, water quality. These are all infrastructure projects that we have addressed, and wow.
It is 6:43, and we're going to take about a 10-minute break and grab
Thank
a
you.
cookie so he can compose himself, because there's other things he wants to correct me on, I'm sure. We're in recess. All righty, it is 6:53. Colin, we good? It is 6:53, and we are back in order, and we are going to go to the mayor's report. And I have a couple of quick things before we jump into the mayor's report. I'll do that last. COVID update, because I've been trying to give you guys that, and you knows, because we talk about this, that we're in trauma service area O, like operator. And 15% is always the big thing that people are looking at. And on February 1st, in trauma service area O, it was at 17.54% of the people who were in the hospital were hospitalized because of COVID. And as of February 5th, that number was down to 14.87. So it's definitely trending down, and there are 389 available beds and 382 available vents. So certainly a huge step in the right direction. And active student cases at Bastrop is 37 for this week, and they have over 12,000 students, and staff cases is 14, and they have 1,300 staff. So it's all going in the right direction, but I always want council to know that I am watching that, and we keep track of that, so I wanted to share that. I also have some fantastic news. Raise your hand if you've ridden in the free e-cab that's available in the city of Bastrop. Look around. It's very easy to do. And they are being responsive. They noticed that for whatever reason, they weren't getting used on Sunday evening. And so they have changed their hours, and now on Sunday, they are going to operate 10 to 6, and it will allow people to take them to church or take them downtown to go to lunch. So thought that was really cool that as soon as the riders saw a shift in the ridership, they're changing their hours, because they had been running get my numbers here. They had been running 2 to 10 like they do on Friday and Saturday, and nobody was riding in the evenings, and everybody was asking for a ride earlier in the day. So Sunday 10 to 6, Monday through Thursday 3 to 9, and Friday through Saturday 2 to 10, and you can hail a cab. You used to have to, you could only do it through the app or call. If they don't have a rider and you see that it's empty, you can just hail them and get in. And it's free. Did I mention it was free? So wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that, because that's a very cool feature that not all towns of less than 10,000 have that kind of service available. So I wanted to make sure you knew that. And then some sad news. I don't know if it's the time of year or what, but there have been a number of deaths in the last few weeks, and I'm going to mention 2 specifically, but I know there are others, and I just would ask everyone to remember the families. Ray Long's wife, Diane Long, passed away, and Jerry Ingram's wife, Doris Ingram, passed away. And so our hearts go out to the Ingram and Long families, and just be nice to people and smile, and be aware that lots of families are going through lots of hard times. So if you could keep them in your thoughts and prayers, I would certainly appreciate it. All right, Colin, let's jump on to the next page. We're going to start in the upper left-hand corner. The city of Lancaster and the city of Bastrop had a CMO for 5 years in a row. That happened to be me. So we got a city award for 5 years in a row, and the photography was done by Councilmember Rogers. She said she was the unofficial photographer for the event. And then the picture of Councilmember Jackson and I, Councilmember Jackson is holding up his CMO, and I am holding up Mayor Pro Tem Nelson's CMO so that he could be included in that picture as well, because he wasn't able to attend the conference, but all 3 of us got it. And then, Colin, if you'll scoot down just a little bit, that was a selfie of Councilmember Rogers and I with the Sugarland City Hall behind us, because our city manager was key in getting that city hall and that town square built. So we were like, hey, which office was yours? But we had a great time and learned a lot. I think if you'll talk to the 3 of us that were there, 2 just outstanding. One of the presentations that really played a lot was about working with teenagers and the difference between Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, Gen Give Me a Break. So I think we all learned a lot on that. I attended the advanced pain care ribbon cutting. The picture of the 3 girls where it says visitors, Colin, These three girls had been sent to Bastrop. One was from Massachusetts, one was from LA, one was from, I think it was a mid-state, like maybe Kansas or something. And they just came by City Hall, wanted to see if they could meet the mayor, sweet as they could be, and they were headed to Houston to do a community project. And they said, can we please get a picture taken together? So I'm just showing this as one of those cool things that you get to do when you're the mayor now and then. I attended the Crowns performance, and we'll have a little bit more about that. I was there on Saturday night, a really neat performance. The Bastrop Opera House just does a great job with all of their programming. And then the bottom right-hand corner, I'm a big supporter of the Navy Junior ROTC program here in Bastrop, and they had their annual military inspection inside, and I attended that, and was a lot of fun to watch those kids, and I wanted to share a picture of that. Colin, if you go to the next page, I did every single thing that I said I was going to do. There you are. And then if you go to the final page, speaking of CapCog and Campo, I will be at the Clean Air Coalition, which I think is what you were trying to think of, Councilmember Jackson. I'll be at that meeting tomorrow, and all of us will be back tomorrow. We're starting at 5 o'clock because we have a Main Street Board meeting at 6 o'clock, but at 5 o'clock we will be canvassing the votes and swearing in our new council member. And I've gotten a couple people said, why didn't you put both of those meetings together? Because by statute we are not allowed to canvass the vote until February 9th, so we're canvassing the vote on February 9th, and our charter says that we meet on Tuesday, so we're here on Tuesday, and that's how those things happen. You see everything else in the next council meeting after our special council meeting is the 22nd. Mayor Pro Tem Nelson, you should be next. Do you have anything to share with us?
I would, first of all, thank y'all for the earlier comments. Second of all, looking to some of the people I hear from the P&Z and some other committees, I'm just asking citizens, get involved, get engaged, and improve your community. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Crouch.
No, I don't have anything to share this week.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes, Mayor, I do want to tell you how much of a nice time I had when we went to Sugar Land. I did want to tell the city manager that the elevators are running a little bit slow in the hotel that you have there. But the hotel is fabulous. It was a fabulous time. But never tell the mayor you're going to take a picture of her, because then she goes up 6 times. And I'm like, Jesus. So,
She did say, how many things are you winning today? This is getting...
And then, of course, can you take that picture? But we did. We really had some good things. And that presentation, I think they should show that about the different generations. It was just amazing. Made you think of like, oh, that's what that teenager was trying to tell me, because I didn't understand before. So that was an extremely, tremendous thing. So I always appreciate getting to go to those places, because you really do learn a lot. And the 3 young ladies, just to be able to say that I beat the mayor, they actually came into the Sugar Shack and gave a bag of kindness, because that's what their job in town was doing. Was going around to places and gave us a little bag that had all sorts of little treats in it.
I got the little bag too. Yeah, that was very cool.
See, I thought I could beat the mayor.
Oh, no.
Not.
But I thought maybe they had gotten the candy from you.
Nope, they came in and gave it to me.
Awesome.
So that's what they were doing in town. And it was kind of neat how they were from different areas of the United States going to do that one kindness. And that's all they wanted to do was spread kindness.
Very sweet
So
kids.
that was everything. Thank you.
Councilmember Jackson.
Well, I truly enjoyed the TML meeting. That workshop was excellent, and as both the mayor and Councilmember Rogers have said, the teenagers, the session on teenagers on Generation X, Z, Y, all of that was so informative, and it made me think a lot about how to communicate with my nephews and nieces and with just the citizens at large, our future leaders and everything. It was very educational, and I agree it should be broadcast and taped and shared with people all over the place. I went to the opening night for Crowns at the Opera House and really enjoyed it. It was just absolutely wonderful, and I just applaud them for continuing to do the quality of productions that they do at the Opera House. You mentioned about the 2 people that had passed in the community, and I hadn't heard about one of them, but I had one passing also that I wanted to mention real quickly, and that was Rachel Owens. Some of you may not remember her, but she's former Mayor Locke's aunt, and she had a dress shop on Main Street. And I would always run into her at the post office and everything, and she was in her 90s. She was the sweetest lady, but very, very outspoken, and always letting me know what the city needed to do and everything. But she's truly going to be missed. I missed seeing her in a while, but anyway, she passed this week, and they had her visitation and her services over the weekend. So,
Thank you, Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Peterson.
Thanks, Mayor. Nothing tonight.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Peterson. All right, City Manager, we're on item 7D. It's all you.
Thank you, Mayor. Don't have a slide for this, but I'll let the council and the folks in the audience know about a question we recently received from Councilmember Peterson about the State Highway Department's plans and schedule for resurfacing Chestnut Street or Loop 150. Just these last few weeks, the riding surface on that road seems to have gotten even worse. There is good news. The TxDOT has let a project to do a full depth repair in those sections of that street where it's really bad, and a mill and overlay on the entire length. And they should get started on that when the weather warms up in late spring or early summer. Once they start, it will take about 2 months, and they'll do some of the work at night. So thank you, Mr. Peterson, for asking that question. Colin, I do have a slide or two. A few days ago, there was quite a bit of chatter on social media about a car show that is in the Academy parking lot. I mention Academy just by way of identifying where this took place. Academy had nothing to do with the car show. In fact, some of the social media seemed to indicate that a local business here in Bastrop did sponsor and organize the event. In our follow-up with them, they said no, they really had nothing to do with it. Their logo was used inappropriately. This did create a bit of concern from neighboring businesses. 2 of them actually closed their doors early for fear of what was going on. Most of the folks in the crowd of 400 or 500 were well behaved, but then again, some weren't, and the situation did get a little rowdy. Bastrop Police Department did get help from the Sheriff's Office and Bastrop Independent School District Police, and we do appreciate that. These aren't the kinds of organizations that go look for opportunities to apply for special events permits, and so there was no special event permit for this that would have dealt with noise and vendors and access to businesses and that sort of thing. The police department did respond. There was at least 1 arrest, and I think that was for reckless driving. There were reports on social media about gunshots being fired, and that's one of the reasons why we're spending time on it this evening. I did want to let the council and public know there was no verification of that. We weren't able to track that down, and as far as we know, that wasn't the case. The Bastrop Police Department, as per their norm, did debrief on this, and in the future we'll look for that kind of social media chatter, and if we know of an event like this that's happening again, we'll be more prepared, and we'll staff up accordingly, and we'll be more proactive about how we handle things like unlicensed vendors and site and loud noise and that sort of thing. So really appreciate Chief Nagy's keeping me up on that and for the responsiveness.
So, City Manager, the only thing that I want to add is a plea to the entire community that the thing to do is call 911. Posting on Nextdoor is not going to cause the police to be able to respond to the event. So I appreciate that folks like to share their thoughts and feelings, and you can certainly get on Nextdoor and Facebook, but if you would call 911 first, that would be helpful. And some folks did call 911.
We actually got several calls.
And so that was great, but just as a general reminder, it is very difficult for the police department to monitor every single account on Nextdoor. So it's always good to call for help when you need help.
Thank you, Mayor. So next slide And so the mayor already mentioned that, and she mentioned why we are meeting tomorrow evening, and Councilmember-elect Plunkett, and also tomorrow evening, council, there will be an item on your agenda to elect a mayor pro tem. And the next regular meeting we will have in 2 weeks is on February 22nd. It is time to receive the annual audit report, and we're looking forward to that. And council, you have on your agenda for the 22nd public hearings and action. Your Planning and Zoning Commission took action on these items a few weeks ago. This all relates to the Colorado Bend development, also known as the Studio development, the 522-acre development in southwest of town. Council, you'll be asked to consider annexation, an amendment to the future land use map, an amendment to the thoroughfare plan, and the zoning concept scheme amendment. This is all in accordance with the development agreement that council passed a few months ago. Also on February 22nd are a few contracts just to get some work done, including the annual improvements to the Bastrop Power and Light system as recommended through our agreement with the LCRA. And finally, on the 22nd, we'll ask council to appoint Mayor Schrader. She'll be replacing Mayor Pro Tem Nelson in this role as the CapCog General Assembly representative from Bastrop. Thank you, council.
Council, any questions for the city? Everybody's good? All right, we're moving on to item 7E, a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, recognizing the month of February as Black History Month. And I am thrilled that once again we are recognizing February as History Month. I want to draw your attention to the fact that the theme for 2022 is Black Health and Wellness. I know that is a subject with Councilmember Jackson's dedication to Parks and Recreation and throughout his career that health and wellness, I'm sure, is one that hits close to home for him. I am going to read just a bit of this. Whereas the origins of Black History Month can be traced to the scholar Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who created the Association for the Study of African American Life and History in 1915, because African Americans have played a central role in our nation's history, but for far too long, historians ignored or glossed over their contribution and the injustices they suffered. I've mentioned that whereas the theme of 2022 will be Black Health and Wellness, and most importantly, specific to our community, I want to talk about, in honor of Black History Month, the Bastrop Opera House is hosting the musical Crowns by Regina Taylor, which is the first all-Black musical at the Bastrop Opera House. This is a moving and celebratory musical play in which hats become a springboard for an exploration of Black history. Now, therefore, I, Connie Schrader, Mayor of the City of Bastrop, do hereby recognize the month of February 2022 as Black History Month. And Lisa Holcomb is in the audience, and I'd like her to come forward, and we're going to give them a copy of this proclamation so it can be shown while Crowns is on for all of February. Let's give her a round of applause. And thank you to Councilmember Jackson for making that suggestion that we have an extra copy for them. That'll be a neat thing for them to do. I know, and Lisa can correct me, there's African American is the director of the play, all of the players, really all of the support. When they say that it's an all-Black production, it is an all-Black production, and it's very, very much worth your time and effort. All right, Council, we're moving on to Item 9, as we have no work sessions and briefings, we are at 9A, receive presentation on the fiscal year 22 first quarterly report. Council, the link was in the packet, but each of you have new year, new notebook for the 4 quarterly reports. And with that, I'll turn it over to Assistant City Manager Gleason.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, City Manager. Glad to be standing in front of you to give our first quarterly report for fiscal year 22. As you may have noticed, it has grown a little, and that is because this is our first quarterly report that includes management projects, and those came directly from the budget. So you will find them near the beginning, and they will lay out each of our management projects for the year along with timeline, scope, project teams, and we'll be able to update you quarterly on how those projects are progressing. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, kind of more in depth, we had a great question from Councilmember Rogers on the Riverloop project. So we wanted to give some more details to give a more complete picture of the history of the project. Currently, the project is about 30% complete. We are expected to be completed in April, which we are excited about. We've gotten a lot of really positive feedback from people about the sidewalks going in and the connectivity. So the project actually dates back to 2017. That is when the EDC passed a resolution to fund the cost of the entire project at $680,000. From there, TxDOT awarded the city a grant in the amount of $475,200. And then we got another grant from the governor's office that Keep Bastrop County Beautiful applied for $130,000. So we were glad to get those grant funds and reduce the input from the EDC for funding. In September, the EDC signed a contract with Bowman Engineering. The contract included design, build, and 2 months of engineering services during construction. That's important to note because it's that scope that came back was not sufficient to cover the services needed for the contract. Things keep moving. The EDC reaches out to the city to help the project get moving and help with project management. We reach out to TxDOT to make sure that we understand what it's going to take to partner with TxDOT, and we have a long process to go through, including doing an advanced funding agreement and some very specific project management training that several of the city staff had to undertake to be able to oversee the project. We work with TxDOT to get a special project agreement signed, and we are finally ready to bid construction in May of 21. This is our first interaction with Bowman, is getting ready to bid on a contractor for the project. We set up the construction pre-bid conference, and we have a bid opening in June of 21, which y'all probably remember. It is in August that we receive a copy of the contract for the first time. During that period of May until August, we're having some concerns with what Bowman's telling us about what they're going to cover during the project. We're starting to think that the scope of their contract is not going to oversee the work that is necessary for the entire project. And so that is why we worked so hard to get a copy of that contract so we could see what we were working with. We noticed that the contract was missing some key parts. Number one, it was missing 4 months of engineering during construction. The original scope only had 2 months, but they knew that the entire project would be 6 months because that's what they put in the bid documents. It was also missing material testing, which was required, construction inspections, which were again required because you're partnering with TxDOT and they have some pretty stringent things in place that have to happen, and the city needed a record drawing for us to go back to and be able to review. So once we find the gap between the scope of the original contract and what the project actually needs to be successful, we start talking with Bowman to negotiate that change. This is going to be the change in contract terms necessary to get this contract fulfilled. How much will that cost? We take that change in scope to the EDC to let them know what that change is in December of 21, and they deny that change with Bowman Engineering for that cost. And so In December, because the project's moving and we don't want to delay it, the city actually picks up the pieces of that missing scope, and we add it to our current contract with our city engineer, MWM Designs, and we have our city streets and drainage superintendent actually do the inspection services, as he was actually also TxDOT certified. So that is where we are. So the question was around the budget and why the project was over budget. The budget change comes from that change in scope of that contract. So.
Just to finish that conversation from the staff perspective, we do plan to pursue making the city budget whole for that with the Economic Development Corporation funding. I think the next time we'll be more prepared with as complete a presentation of the history as Rebecca just provided, and I think that'll help.
Well, thank you for giving such a detailed, from start to finish, because there was some gray areas of who didn't do what, but thank you for making it very precise and clear for me.
Moving on to the management projects, this is the part of the quarterly report I mentioned is new this fiscal year. We created this template in hopes that it would be the best way for us to convey a lot of information to y'all on several projects. So again, any feedback on the template you see, information that you feel is unnecessary, information you feel that the template is missing, we're happy for that feedback. So we have several management projects, as I mentioned. Two of the management projects that had some movement in the first quarter was under agenda management. We are working to go to a platform for agenda management, so we won't be doing it old school in the Word documents and having to PDF it and squeeze it together, and when people make changes, make sure we get all those changes. So we're excited for that. It will track all of those changes, especially when our city manager is in there and changing things as you're going behind him and changing them back. So we're hoping to get away from some of that. It should be really great. We had a great kickoff meeting with MuniCode, who we signed a contract with, and so we're excited about that software and also how it connects to our website and pushes information to our community. So it's an exciting project.
On behalf of all of council, we expect training if that means it is what we're going to see and how we access stuff, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
We are planning on lots of training.
Thank you.
Lots of training. The other project that had movement in first quarter is our broadband feasibility study. So council awarded a contract for that, and they have begun data collection. We are expecting a draft on that as early as April. Communications. I wanted to take a moment to talk about the Community Impact Manager communications. Miss Candace Butts, our Community Impact Manager, who owns putting together this quarterly report. She, last quarter, began utilizing Constant Contact. And so that is how our messages are now going out to our Main Street District businesses, but also our volunteer databases, our community support groups. And so we've gotten a lot of feedback, really positive feedback, that people are enjoying the way that that's laid out. Last quarter, she sent just over 2,000 emails. She sent one just today that included some great training resources from one of our consultants on low-cost marketing. The downtown Facebook analytics continues to be one of our stronger brands. It had a reach last quarter of 60,000 people. We are continuing to have conversations with Visit Bastrop, and we've now brought on Civic Brand to talk about how we can better connect our small businesses who are creating those promotions and creating those opportunities for social reach and getting them to our platform. That way we can better get the word out about all of the incredible things that our small businesses are doing. Inspections continue to grow. As y'all remember, City Council several quarters ago decided to contract out inspections because that meant we could roll up or roll down contracts as inspections grew or shrank in a way we couldn't with full-time employees. And so last quarter, we had 7,000 building inspections. A lot of that is around all of those new homes that are being built. Anytime you build a new home, you have several inspections. So it leads to very, very big inspection contracts, which you guys have been seeing come to you week after week. Visit Bastrop. So we are now kind of around page 93 of the report, if that helps. I am really excited to say that I spoke with Susan, and Visit Bastrop is on target to currently exceed their KPIs for the year, which is really exciting news. They have had 35 media coverage pieces for last quarter, which is really outstanding, and I think a lot of us have been seeing some of those pieces as they roll out or have been even asked to be quoted in them. We've seen a lot of that from the dais, so that's been exciting. They are consistently having strong drivers to their website. Their website continues to perform wonderfully. They are hosting the Lost Pines Christmas website. They are hosting the Downtown Bastrop website, and they are hosting the Convention Center website. And I think that's a testament to how strong the partnership is between the two groups. We continue to work on all of those to make sure that they are more robust and to build them out in each of their kind of unique fields. So we're pretty proud of that friendship. I also wanted to congratulate them. Last quarter, they won first place for marketing and advertising for Best of Bastrop, which is exciting. We are also really proud of their work selling the convention center. So they have really stepped up and made it a priority to help us sell this convention center. So Ms. Cherry Kay has been working closely with Kathy to learn the ins and outs of the convention center so they can help be a partner in selling that, and they have made a lot of great strides towards that. Main Street, we had a lot of new businesses come in this past year, and most proud, we've had a lot of businesses who expanded this last year. We had a lot of businesses who outgrew their spaces and needed bigger spaces. We have one currently moving who needs a bigger space, so that is always good news when a business outgrows their current space. So we'll continue to try to help to support them the best we can and track that. The Main Street Board is finishing out their first ever formal building inventory. So, you know, I talk to a lot of Main Street programs that may have 15 buildings in their Main Street, and we have 62 city blocks. And so it's close to almost 200 buildings, and so we have actually pulled the building inventory from the 911 database, which is what we believe will be the most complete inventory of all the little nooks and crannies of suites and things like that. And so the board then divided up the district, and they are going building by building to make sure that we have the most accurate reflection of the business that's in that space, their contact information, how they want to be contacted. From there, we can do our first ever formal vacancy rate. So we're excited about that building inventory and what that means. The Main Street Academy continues to work hard to bring training opportunities to our businesses. You know, originally Main Street training was in person, and then COVID happened, and then it went online. And so we are now moving to a place where we're building a library. So currently we push out our Main Street Academy trainings through those constant contact emails that we're sending, but we are building on our city website a library of resources for our downtown businesses to have access to around the clock, to watch those past video trainings, or to get information about demographics, just anything they need to be successful. It will kind of be their own little corner to go to. So working on that. We had a new video go out just today that I think I mentioned was on low-cost marketing. And we had one go out first quarter that was on retaining staff. So the board worked on the parking lot rebrand. All of our parking lots are named now after birds in partnership with Bird City. So those parking lot rebrands, flags have gone up. We have delivered parking lot brochures to all of our businesses, and we have sent out that digital file for our businesses to put on their websites. The next step in that project is all of those large signs that have the maps are going to be recovered. So that way they are more up to date. And then they're also going to be recovering the large plastic peas. We're going to reface them because they are looking quite warm. So we're excited about that and hope it will bring a little bit of a facelift to downtown. Grants, last quarter, we were very excited, as y'all know, to be awarded the St. David's Foundation grant for our Parks and Recreation Master Plan in the amount of $250,000. The other grant that we received was with FEMA. So we received this grant a while back for a detention pond, and that project came in under budget. So we went back to FEMA and said, we would like to put in a plant or a pump station to that detention pond, so that way our crews do not have to pump that detention pond by hand during heavy rain. And FEMA said yes, so we're excited to be able to upgrade that detention pond with a pump station. So we'll be bringing that back to council for approval. We are now on page 105 of your report. I know some of these numbers are getting small, so I want to give you all the page numbers if you need them. Our planning department continues to see record permit numbers. So for the first quarter of 22, we had 74 permits submitted, 60 were issued. We had 16 home remodeling permits that were submitted and 10 issued, 2 new commercial construction, 1 issued, 2 demolition, 0 issued, and 11 plats, 0 issued. So the second chart is where we always lay out to see where those gaps are and what's going on with that. And you can see that many of them were still in review. So I spoke to planning because we normally don't have that many that are still in review. And with the end of the quarter following with the holiday, we just had more in review than normal because of the holiday time off. But I had them go back and double check every single one. And none of those were approved outside of our timelines that we try to hit. You know, we've put in place timelines for good customer service, and all of them were still completed within those timelines. So last quarter, we were excited to receive news that our planning department received the 2021 Planning Excellence Certificate. And that is an achievement award that looks at the level of training of your planning commissioners, which is our P&Z that works really, really hard at what they do and puts in a lot of hours to serve our community, as well as your professional staff. Talks about the qualifications of your planning staff and the master plan components, which the City Council knows we're really proud of our master plan. It was a really well-done document with a lot of public engagement, as well as planning-related projects. So we're very proud of that award. Mygov request manager data. We like to bring this to you every quarter to show you the number of requests we are getting through our Mygov request manager. We had 533 requests. Of that, 516 were completed, 17 active. So the Mygov request manager are where our citizens can go to request anything you can imagine, including just general requests. They're not sure who they need to talk to, if they have a question, they have a concern. All of that can be found on our homepage. Up at the top, it says request a concern, or have a concern. That's what it says. So they can click that, and it'll take them to the request manager, and they can either know exactly who they need to talk to, or they can just put in a general request, and we'll track that down. It tracks it from open all the way to close, so we can see how long it's been sitting in the system. We can make sure it's moving. The Bastrop County Historical Society and Museum, I wanted to point out the number of visitors they had. Their visitor count continues to grow strong after COVID, with just over 3,000 visitors. I asked specifically what they were most proud of that they wanted me to mention this evening. They had 14,050 volunteer hours, which was really incredibly marvelous and really dedicated to their 2 holiday events. So their 2 holiday events brought in a total of 600 people, and they completed 50 research requests. So they were pretty proud of those numbers, and I tend to agree with them. We go on to the Opera House. This is on page 122 of your report, and I wanted to point out their social media reach. So they have an incredible social media reach that they should be very proud of. It is not easy to build that type of reach, so they're doing a great job. They also had over 5,000 tickets sold in a quarter, which is incredible. I know Madam Mayor mentioned the Crown's performance. That was the item that they were most proud of. They wanted me to mention. With that was they were invited to the Spurs halftime show, which was really fun. So I am a big Spurs fan, which being from Houston, my granny has big feelings about. But I let her know that I like to be a winner. So, but it was a great performance. I've seen the pictures. It seemed like a really fun time for the cast. So that was exciting for everyone. I also wanted to point out that they did a lot of partnering throughout the quarter. They partnered with BISD on their radio show, and they also partnered with the museum on their sold-out cemetery tour. We have the Lost Pines Arts Center. You can see their visitor numbers are continuing to bounce back after COVID. The big thing that they had this quarter was the handmade holiday market. Don't know if anyone got to attend that, but I was able to pick up a lot of Christmas gifts, and they had over 200 visitors that day. So it was a beautiful day to shop downtown. The other big thing that occurred last quarter was Lost Pines Christmas. So downtown Bastrop had Small Business Saturday and Wassail Fest. We had a Christmas tree lighting a day late because of weather, but it went off without a hitch. And our Santa this year was one of our very own firefighters. And so they liked it so much, I feel like they were on a high, because Chief Rosales called me right after the tree lighting and said, I think maybe we should put a Santa's mailbox at the fire station, and the firefighters can return all the letters to the babies. And I was like, did you eat too many candy canes? Because that is not his personality, but they really enjoyed it. And I think the firefighters had a great time, and they wore little elf gear and escorted Santa in, because he's the most popular man at the tree lighting. So it was a fun day for the city staff. We also had the downtown open house, which was Candy Cane Lane branded, and then the Lost Pines Christmas Parade. We have estimated that we have as many as 12,000 people downtown for that parade. So we've gotten a lot of great feedback on that, a lot of lessons learned. I think that will continue to be one that every year we'll learn more and more how to put that on. So we were excited about everything around Lost Pines Christmas. It's a big quarter for the downtown district. We are happy. I got some great numbers from Visit Bastrop, who hosts the Lost Pines Christmas site. So it was up 23% year to date over last year. They had over 11,000 sessions with over 8,000 users to the website searching for Lost Pines Christmas. And River of Lights was their top organic page for the quarter. So I wanted to take a minute to talk about under unique environment, Texas Parks and Wildlife. We are working on our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, but the other part of us coming into compliance with Texas Parks and Wildlife in order to receive grants is really our outstanding compliance issues at Bob Ryan Park. So back in 2009, I believe the city received a grant to help build Bob Ryan Park. And sometime around 2014 was, I believe, when the water wells went in, we got out of compliance with the grant because we used parkland for the water wells. And so had a great conversation with Texas Parks and Wildlife about how do we fix this? And so what we can do is called a conversion of public land to parkland. And so they helped us walk the site and cut out exactly. We made a little cut down the road leading to the water well, around the water well. And so we now need to get that land surveyed for value. And we just need to take that little piece off of parkland and put in a piece someplace else for equal value and call that parkland. And then we'll be back in compliance. And so we have worked out a schedule to make that happen. They have been wonderful and are full of information. Curtis Hancock, our Director of Public Works, and I have been working with them. Our next steps are to survey Bob Bryant Park for that portion that is out of compliance. And then we can review city-owned property to find out what could be good options for that trade. They suggest that we bring it back to them and tell them kind of what we're thinking. They want to work with us every step of the way. And then we're hoping July through September to perform the necessary environmental assessments and finish up the project. So they said we do not have to be 100% done to be re-eligible for grants through Texas Parks and Wildlife. They said if we're showing a good faith effort, if we're on that pathway, that they would be more than happy to work with us on that. So, any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Gleason. Council, any questions for Ms. Gleason? Councilmember Rogers?
I have a question, sorry.
Sure.
Let me go back to my little post-it notes that I have in here. On the playground equipment, my mouth doesn't work at this time of night. I was hoping just to put a note that I think it was Councilmember Crouch that was suggesting that they get covers. So maybe I was hoping that was in their plan to think about covering that hot metal in the sun so they can enjoy the playground equipment instead of burning their hinds. On page 105 about the development statistics, on the next quarterly report, when you're comparing the permits submitted, can we get the ones issued from last year also, not just the submitted?
105.
So we can kind of
sure.
compare apples to apples, so we'll know how, if we're able to approve, we're approving more permits or not.
Sure.
Thank you. My last one, just one left. Nope, that was my personal note. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilmember Rogers. Councilmember Crouch?
I just had a couple of questions, and great job on the report. I know all
Thank you,
y'all
sir.
put that together, but that was a ton of information in a little short amount of time. The questions I had was, one, at the beginning on the Riverloop project.
Yes, sir.
Who was in charge of the invitation to bids to the subcontractors? Was Bowman in charge of writing that scope of work?
Yes, sir.
And then who was in charge of reviewing the bids? Was Bowman in charge of reviewing
sir.
the bids too?
Yes, sir.
So they just missed that time gap, or who
What
caught
was-
that? Did staff catch it? Or did-
We ultimately caught it. What was missed in the professional services contract with Bowman was the number of months allocated to construction management, which includes construction inspection. 10 months was what was required, 2 months what was in the contract, and that's what the budget supported. And so that's really the heart of the shortfall. And as Ms. Gleason said, we're covering that shortfall. The city is, in the meantime, eating those costs, either with staff time or with our contract with the city engineer, and that's what we'll seek to be made whole later. But what was missed, to answer your question, was the length of time, the duration of the construction management services. It wasn't sufficient for the project.
In the contract between Bowman and the EDC.
Yeah, and I think the geotechnical testing, and I know we did our own inspections, right? So that's great. We offset
We're doing
the
that now.
inspection piece of it. But the geotechnical, there's been a couple of projects I know that we've missed the geotechnical piece of it and not getting that done. The skate park was one, and now this seems like to be another one that we didn't include that in the invitation to bid. So maybe we can make a short list of things to include in those projects that have a little bit of civil work included with them to include the geotechnical piece of it. And then the inspections, an incredible number of inspections. So you've got over 7,000 inspections now from 4,000 last quarter. So I know we added staff to help with that, and we're third-partying that out. Is our staff adequate with that almost double increase? I know that's just going to continue to increase, and we need to continue to look at staff, but are we okay with staff right now?
So we don't perform that work with in-house staff at all. We have a building official who will do some follow-up works, but most of her time is office time. All of that residential inspection work, which is the bulk of that number, is performed by third-party staffing. And from time to time, Council, we do come to you and we ask you to increase those contracts. A good thing about the way we're doing that is we can ensure that the permit fee revenues cover this cost, and they do cover that cost. The other good thing is that the contractors are contractually obligated to a very quick turnaround time. When we schedule an inspection day one, they are by contract required to be there the next day. So that's all part and parcel of why we contract that out.
Yeah, and great job. I mean, that's a lot of inspections to go from 4,000 to 7,000, and it's just going to continue to increase. So
There's no way we could do that and do that with city staff.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, and I'm glad we saw that in the budget when we were looking at the budget earlier and added a staff person for that. So my question was just, do we need to add more, because that's a substantial number increase. So if we're handling it, then
we
great.
Appreciate that willingness to look at the staff levels. You know, we'll be kicking off our annual budget process here pretty soon, and yes, sir, we'll want to make sure we're adequately staffed. That staff person we added this fiscal year, just so everybody remembers, was more of an administrative person, just to keep up with the inward-facing work, so that our planner and our director weren't quite so burdened with their 70-hour work weeks with administrative stuff.
And that's another reason I ask, is because with 7,000 inspections, that means you had more applications and more stuff to review on that side. So
we appreciate that concern. Yes, sir.
Okay. Another question that I had was the permitting. So you had a lot of numbers and increase in permitting too. I think we'd ask, or maybe it was just me that asked, and it could have been with joint BEDC, but do you have a time? I know we can track the time for permits from when they come in to when they're approved or a permit issued. So is that an item that you can include in the next report? So is average length of time for a commercial or residential or remodel or specific type of permit, so we can at least get an idea how long we're spending on that?
We do remember that request. We continue to work on it. The system we use, the software we use, really doesn't lend itself very well at that kind of by permit granular data. And that speaks to why we present the information we do. At a particular snapshot in time, the end of the quarter, we report on everything that's been submitted and everything that's been approved, and we show you that gap, what's been submitted but hasn't been approved yet, and then we try to break that down into categories of why that is, and a category is projects that are in review. So what Rebecca explained a little while ago is for this report, what we did is we looked at those in review projects, those plats and permit submittals, and we tracked them over time to see whether or not they were approved by the city ultimately within our established timeframes for turning things around. We do have established timeframes for turning things around. If we're asked an individual question about permit A, we can track that down. What we have a hard time doing with the volume of things is putting that together in the aggregate. I do think the way we do present it shows a pretty compelling picture of the staff's responsiveness. The numbers that we do present, I think, make that case pretty clearly. We can continue to work on that, but I think it is difficult for us to provide an average turnaround time because the software just doesn't lend itself to that.
Okay. I guess that's not my experience with it. I can see a time from when you start an application
For an
to the
individual
time.
project, yes, you can.
Yeah,
And
so my question is it possible for, you break it up into categories, residential, commercial, remodel, different types of things. So is it possible just to get the time frame for each permit and do an average of how long it's taken to get a permit?
Not easily, no. What we can easily do is take a snapshot in time and show you how much that's been submitted is currently in review, and then we can track those over time to see if we've completed them timely.
Yeah.
That we can do.
I think we should try to fix that timeline to where we can see how long it's taken to get a permit. And I know it's different for new home construction and a new development, because that should go a lot quicker because they're just have all their plans and they're rebuilding the same plan over and over. And so the review time should be less on that. But if you take that permit versus a residential permit downtown or somewhere else besides the massive produced subdevelopments that we've got now, why can't we just take the average from all residential and just get an average time for getting a permit? I understand there's a lot of parts and pieces to it, but from the day you apply to the day you end is
Not sure
a
how else to
definite time.
try to answer that question other than to say we'll continue to try to work on it.
Okay. I think that was it.
Thank you,
Thank
Councilmember
you.
Crouch.
It was a great report.
Any other questions for staff? Good job. Thank you, Ms. Gleason. Want to remind the public that there's a link on the website. You're more than welcome to dig through and find the information that you are interested in. And thank you for our community partners for being here and for being a part of the quarterly report. It's very helpful. Appreciate you being here in case council had any questions, but thank you for all that you do. Appreciate that very much. All right, council, it is 7:52. Everybody okay? Or do we need a quick? All right, nobody's hollering, so we're going to keep going. We're moving on to citizens' comments. The first person we have signed up for citizens' comments is Alexandra Fight. Alexandra? All right, she was signed up. She lives at 188 Sarah's Road, and my name is Alexandra Fight. My family and I live at 188 Sayers Road. I've reached out to the mayor and city manager regarding the proposed Legend Oaks Cove subdivision development located southwest of Sayers Road. From the P&Z meeting, I understand that litigation has no bearing on the developer's ability to proceed with the project. However, I want to ensure you and the citizens of Bastrop understand why we feel they should not proceed until the following litigation is resolved. The permits for Section 1 were submitted fraudulently. The developer has failed to comply with agreements. Our existing well is listed as exempt, but it's non-exempt. Bluebonnet has advised the developer the requested placement of poles and facilities were changed by the developer. The results of the chemical sampling conducted by Lost Pines Groundwater District ensured 20 new residents will be without primary drinking water. What we're asking is that the council require the developer to address these issues before final plating is approved. If the law requires approval of the plat, then as council, ensure that ongoing issues that we are having are addressed and make sure they have a clear and concise plan on these issues that are not a factor in the new development. The next person I have signed up to speak is Moez Ahi. Was I close? Yes. Oh, yes. All right, if you would please come forward and state your name and say your address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members, to allowing me to present my concern, my matter. My name is Moez Ali, 103 County Road, 180, Unit 9, Leander, Texas, 78641. I'm presenting here Zulfikar Ali, who owned the property at 1203 Chestnut Street. He used to lease out to one of his tenants. Unfortunately, the tenant left the property. He closed the business without notice. Zulfikar, when he came to know, he would like to open the business so he can earn some bread and butter for his family. He came here, and I came along with him to inspect the property. When we came down here, unfortunately, in the property, inside the store, he had a seizure attack. He fell down, he was bleeding, he was injured. I have to call 911. Ambulance came and took him to the Austin hospital. Doctor requested him to rest 90 days, no driving. And because his health situation, he still want to open his business. He came right with someone to city to request to turn on the utility. At that time, city staff request him to pay the due from the previous tenant. I don't know why he got forced to pay someone else due, but for good gesture, he paid that amount so he can have that utility on and he can open the store. Finally, he got turned on the utility, and after a few days, city inspector came to the store, inspected, and he said that he cannot open the business until he fulfilled the B3 city code. This B3 city code require him to block the entire access of the property from the Chestnut, move the pumps, fuel pumps, and parking behind the building, plant the trees across the Hazel Street, and narrow it down the access. That was too much for him. He don't know what to do. Then he had to ask, he was seeking an attorney help. We hired an attorney, and attorney requested a meeting with this city staff. We came down here, and we explained them that, what's the situation. City staff said that it is a amendment. It's no longer grandfather. My attorney said it's a default position. So, and they agree with that, and they should get back within 1 week, but we didn't get any response. And then we received a letter said, we never had agreed with that, and we've been back and forth. So I would request to city to consider this matter, and I hope for the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, we know that this wasn't posted, so we can't discuss it, but we can ask the city manager to look into issues at 1203 Chestnut. The next person signed up to speak is Joe Grady Tuck. If you'd please come forward and give us your address, and you will have 3 minutes. Name and address.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm at 1503 Wilson Street. I'm a like Councilman Jackson and Peterson. I'm a multi-generational resident of Bastrop. I practice law here with my partner, Elizabeth Beyer, and we operate out of 2 buildings on Main Street. We have a law office, which is the biggest law firm in the county, and also a title company, Chicago Title. And all I do is real estate work for developers. And I feel like I've got and for people like Mr. Ali, who just spoke. And I was the lawyer that was there at that meeting. And this requirement that was put on him because of the B3 code is emblematic of the problems of that code and its interpretation by staff. And both of those matters have been the cause of immense discontent in the community. And I'll tell you that the last 2 elections, the victors in those elections, both ran on a platform of amending or doing away with the B3 code and doing something about the way the staff interprets it. And I'll also tell you that the presently unopposed candidates for the next 2 seats that are up, I've talked to them, and they are both in favor of that same thing. So this is not something that it affects it's a tragedy to some immigrant like Mr. Ali, who's put out of business. The latest thing is the city inspector went out there, and because his store is not being open, vandals have destroyed or damaged some of his pumps, and that they want to move into the back, which is impossible. You can't sell gasoline if your pumps are in the back of the store, which has no room for parking, by the way. This is insane, and it's emblematic of some of the problems with this B3 code. There's 12 cities that have form-based code in the state. All of them have it in the historic district. None of them have it on Interstate 71 or this far from the historic district. And something needs to be done, at the very least, to restrict that to the downtown historic district like every other city that has form-based code. I can tell you that it doesn't just affect small merchants like Mr. Ali, it also affects home builders. I don't know if any of you have tried to rent a house or buy a house in this town in the last year or 2, but ever since the Tesla announcement, there are no affordable housing in this town. And the reason the 3 biggest builders in this town have told me is that they will never build another house in this city, within the city limits. And that's because of this B3 code and the way it's interpreted by the city staff. So my request, and this is the final thing I'll say, please put on the agenda for the 22nd the matter of a review of the B3 code and its enforcement by the city staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tuck. Madam Secretary, that's all I have. Do you have anybody else signed up for citizen comments?
No, Mayor.
All right. Council, we're moving on to the consent agenda. We are pulling item 11B. I have 3 people signed up to speak on 11B, so we'll pull that. Does anyone else want any other item pulled off of consent? Madam Secretary, if you please read the consent agenda.
The consent agenda reads as follows. Item 11A, consider action to approve City Council minutes from the January 25th, 2022 regular meeting. Item 11C, consider action to approve resolution number R-2022-24 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, award a grant administrative service contract to Grant Works to provide pre-award and post-award administrative services for the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program application, authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents, providing for a repealing clause, and establishing an effective date. Item 11D, consider action to approve resolution number R-2022-25 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving a list of qualified engineering firms to provide pre-award and post-award through FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program application, authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents, providing for a repealing clause, and establishing an effective date. This concludes the consent agenda.
Move for approval of the consent agenda
I have a motion to approve from Councilmember Jackson.
as amended.
Second.
And a second from Councilmember Crouch, and that would be, for clarity, items 11A, 11C, and 11D. Is there any further discussion? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. The motion passes unanimously. Item 11B reads as follows. Consider action to approve the second reading of ordinance number 2022-03 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, calling for and establishing the procedures for a May 7th, 2022 special election for the purpose of amending the Home Rule Charter and providing an effective date. Council, we met about this and we had the words, and for clarity for the public, the way that works is the city attorney reviewed our charter and made some recommendations to make sure that we were compliant with latest laws and kind of clean a few things up. There are a number of items, and they, what council has on their agenda tonight is that would be on the election, and people would vote yes or no on each of those suggested amendments. I think it might be best to hear from the people who are wanting to speak, and then we can ask our city attorney or city manager questions. The first person I have signed up to speak is Cheryl Lee. If you please state your name and address, you will have 3 minutes to address us.
Hello. Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor, City Manager. My name is Cheryl Lee. My address is 801 Laurel Street. I am here today to speak on item 11B, specifically Proposition 1. I, of course, currently serve on the city's Planning and Zoning Committee, and I, like my committee peers, were a little caught off guard by the proposed changes to reduce the number of commissioners to 7 from 9. I was equally caught off guard by the comment made during the last City Council meeting in reference to the existing members being highly intelligent but unqualified for the role. That comment in the moment left many of us feeling unappreciated for the time and service we have provided to this community. As commissioners, we fully understand the duties and responsibilities of the role. However, the most important skill of a commissioner and any committee member serving the city are to understand the issues facing our community, remain impartial, open-minded, and fair in our recommendations, and possess the ability to analyze information we receive from staff and residents to make an informed decision for the betterment of our community. It would be very difficult to say that any current commissioner serving is unqualified to meet these qualifications and fulfill the duties of the role. Yet it was said, and for me specifically, unapologetically so. I am now in my 5th year of service as a commissioner. I have a bachelor's degree in health administration, a master's in business administration. I have worked in the field of communications for what will be 22 years in April. I am a published author, and I have served as an executive officer on many boards and committees that aim to improve quality of life for others. We have commissioners, including myself, who are serving with generational connections to this city and have literally lived through and witnessed the growth and changes that have occurred. We have business owners who have firsthand experience with the planning and zoning process, an experienced architect, a commissioner experienced in wastewater management, and a commissioner experienced in planning and development. Additionally, several commissioners have provided long-term services to various boards and other committees for the city in addition to P&Z. We are, collectively as a committee, very capable of making an informed decision with what has been presented to us during our monthly P&Z meetings, and it has been an honor to serve and be part of this commission. I would like to recommend leaving the minimum number of Prop I at 9 to ensure the committee is able to conduct business and avoid risk of delay in making recommendations because of not having a quorum. I am not clear on the motivation behind changing the number, nor are we clear on what the process established to eliminate 2 of the 9 currently serves. But should council decide to move forward with Prop I, despite questions and concerns brought before you, I ask that you do so in the spirit of seeing the value of everyday citizens in this role, that you continue, as you have in the past, to appoint citizens to serve not based on education, whether they have a developer or engineer experience, or their socioeconomic status, but instead evaluate their ability to serve based on their diverse perspective, their ability to connect with citizens, and their desire and passion to serve as a steward and concerned citizen of Bastrop. Thank you for all you do, for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lee. Ms. Lee, I want to make sure that the whole public knows you're on Planning and Zoning because I asked you to please serve on Planning and Zoning. Because I met you at an event, we started having a conversation. I said we have an opening and I would really like for you to serve. Second, I want to make sure that, because not everybody was at the last meeting, the comment that was made by a single council member, and if you go back and look at the tape, I hit the mic as fast as I possibly could. One of the things that, one of the greatest privileges that I have as a mayor is appointing people to boards and commissions. And although I can only make an appointment and it has to be confirmed by a minimum of 3 votes on council to put somebody on, they can't vote on someone that I don't recommend. So I want those of you that are here tonight and every board and commissioner that serves on every single board, I recommended them. I've been here long enough. We've been through enough of the cycle. Every person that's serving, I have personally put them forward. I have complete confidence. To your point, it is not an accident that the Planning and Zoning Board has geographic representation, has diversity, has different backgrounds that are relevant to the decisions that Planning and Zoning makes, and to the point that you made, backgrounds because you care about and live in this community. So I want to make it very, very clear where I stand if I did not make that clear at the last council meeting. So the next person we have signed up to speak is Ishmael Harris. Mr. Harris, if you would please state your address and name, and you will have 3 minutes.
All right. Hello, Council. My name is Ishmael. Hi. I live at Ishmael Harris, 613 Rebecca Lane. A lot of what I have here is probably going to be a repeat of what Cheryl said. I'd rather not repeat it, but I just want to go through what I have to say. I come before you this evening to speak on the possibility of the changing of the Planning and Zoning Commission from 9 members to 7, which I am not in favor of. To learn of this change was a surprise. I feel had I not been watching the City Council meeting that night, I would not have found out about the changing. When I brought it to our attention at the P&Z, some of the members were also surprised by it, which was not good. So I asked the council why, we weren't notified in advance, why we kind of found out about, or some of us found out about it at the time of the meeting. If this has been an ongoing concern about the amount of people attending to make a quorum, and if it has been, why hasn't it not been brought forth prior to that meeting, excuse me. So I would like to think that if a decision is being made regarding one of the boards or commissions, they will be notified in advance versus finding out at the meeting. What direction does the City Council would like to see us go as far as qualified members? I say this because of a couple of statements that were made. One being sometimes it's difficult to get willing citizens who can deal with what is the #1 issue in Bastrop planning and zoning. Well, I seem to see that we continue to have willing citizens who want to get in and make a difference and help. And I see that on Thursdays. Since I've been here, I've been a part of the commission for 3 years, we've met a quorum every single time, as far as I can remember. Then there was the other comment, of course, that not all people sitting on the Planning and Zoning Commission are exactly qualified for that position. I know that was not a representation of the council. And some of the people who are on the council are the reason that I am on the commission to this day. So I thank you for giving me this opportunity. I think that, I'm just gonna kind of ad-lib a little bit, I don't want to look down. I think that having a diverse group helps out the community. You can't just have strictly people who are focused on building or development because you'll forget about the citizens. That's who makes the community, right? And so, having that number at 9 gives us that ability to have that diversity. Narrowing it down, if we have a quorum, of 4 people, it limits things. And as a lifelong person of Bastrop, my family is from here. I want to see the community grow. I think we all do a great job, and it's been an honor to serve with everybody.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harris. I'd like to speak to the number and clarify a couple things. Council's not making a decision. It's in the charter. It goes to election. So the only thing council's deciding is, should we ask the community if they want to vote? The second thing, we're not changing the number from 9 to 7. The way the charter's currently written, it says thou shalt have 9. The language that council had approved at the first reading was that there would always be a minimum of 7. So it could be 9, it could be 12. If as the community grows, we may get to the point that we think 9 is not enough. To change the charter, we have to have an election. Having an election runs anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 because that's what it costs to have an election. And so the wording that council came up with at the time was to say, make it a minimum of 7, so it could always be a bigger number and it wouldn't have to go back out and spend the money on the election. How we could get to the number, because there are times that we've got applicants and there are times that people move or somebody, and I'm struggling to find someone. So if there is a vacancy because someone has moved that can impact the quorum, we would have the ability to say, okay, until we get the vacancy filled, it's 8. So then the quorum could be met easier. So the intention of the wording was for flexibility. I completely own, I could have, after our council meeting, we could have come to planning and zoning and explained all of that, but the intention is that it would stay at 9, and the only reason the number would go down, a mayor could say, we need to reduce it for a couple of months or what, and that would have to be voted on, that would have to be posted. So it was purely trying to save some tax dollars on elections and give some flexibility. So I don't want anyone to think that we have decided the number is 7, because we can't decide, because it's in the charter and everybody registered votes. So let's talk about how important it is for folks to vote, which is a different subject. The next person we have signed up to speak is Cynthia Meyer.
Hi, my name's Cynthia Meyer. I live at 110 Briar Forest Drive in Bastrop. And I'm a lifelong resident of Bastrop. I also have owned property and a business on Main Street in Bastrop for 36 years. So I kind of have the pulse of Bastrop in me. And I also have had the privilege to serve on Planning and Zoning Commission currently and for the last 5 years. And I just wanted to address, and I'm not going to read all these notes things, I'm just going to talk to y'all. The concern I had, one of the concerns is the explanation on the numbers. The quote was, the city has found it sometimes difficult to meet the quorum of 5 people. And I'm going to speak personally on all the 5 years I've been on the planning and zoning. There was one time, and it was May 30th, 2019. And the reason I know that is because the meeting was at 6, and I wanted to go to the museum benefit for an exhibit, but I wanted to make my meeting, so I missed my exhibit, and gummit, we didn't have a quorum that night. So that stuck in my mind, but that's the only time we didn't have a quorum. So that reason I have a little question about. The second is maybe not just a question, but maybe a solution about getting 9 people or a certain number of people to serve, and maybe increasing our outreach by not just an annual volunteer fair, but other measures like newsletters, put it in property owners associations and newsletters for volunteerism, maybe the digital sign in front of the convention center, maybe the Bears could hold a banner out front on the lawn in front of Starbucks, just all different creative measures. And I'm more than happy to volunteer in any way I could to help in that aspect. But I just want to reiterate what Cheryl and Ishmael said, and it is imperative to have qualified, fair, equal, and diverse representation on planning and zoning. And I appreciate the council doing that in the past and picking the members, because I think that is your intent. That has been what? Also not just backgrounds, but locations of where they live. And we don't want to restrict too much because we can't say Hunter's Crossing can't be represented, but North Main can be. We don't want to eliminate. We want to include everyone. And I know that's your intent too. I know fairness is your intent. I just want to make sure we all stay focused on what it is that is important. Therefore, I think it's important when we think of any reduction, even if it's a small amount or for a smaller time being, the negative ramifications and perceptions that it could have. And I think in the end, we all want what is best for the citizens of Bastrop. And I hope that we all keep that in mind and work together to accomplish that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Meyer. Council, I want to remind you, and I also want you guys to know that one of the things the city attorney told us is most cities, the number of planning and zoning is not in their charter. It's done by ordinance, and you can change an ordinance without having to have a countywide, or a citywide election, sorry, not county, citywide election. So we're trying to hit that middle ground. Very, very much appreciate the feedback. So council, with that, you've heard the concerns. Mr. Attorney, my memory is if we want to change any of the verbiage, that's the point of a second reading, and council could make any changes or not make changes, and whatever we vote on tonight is what will be the ballot language for the May election. Am I saying that correctly?
Mayor. Yes.
So at council, it's up for your discussion as to whether or not you want to change or not change. Councilmember Rogers.
Well, Mayor, I know when we had this discussion, the planning and zoning not having a quorum was a big issue. And my understanding during that talk is that they had several problems of no quorum, so they couldn't meet.
I don't want to argue with our current planning and zoning, but I think sometimes the reason you don't have quorum issues is because they don't call the meeting because they make the calls ahead of time, so they may get scheduled at a different date. So they're picking dates when they know they have quorums. So that may be a perception as well.
Okay, thank you for answering that, because that's where I was trying to go at understanding. Thank you.
So, and again, I don't think anybody's saying we haven't met in 6 months because we've had quorum issues. That was just one of those things that can be a problem. Councilmember Jackson.
No, I know when we were discussing this at our council meeting, when we were trying to put this together, and I think you've explained it, and the council explained it, and of course we've heard from our commissioners also. There was some discussion about the number, and because of having to change it in the charter and then having to put it on the election, but also we were talking about the ordinances also that we could do, and so we had several options. But like the mayor said, this is something that is going to have to be voted on by the citizens. I was wondering about that from 9 to 7 myself, and I think, we had a discussion on that, and I think I'm on record for wondering about that, and so I'm just wondering tonight, since we have an opportunity to change it, if we said 7 as a minimum, I mean, basically.
Right, with minimum of 7.
But that shows a lot of flexibility, and, when do you change and say, well, we need 8, or we need 9, or, something like that. So maybe if we went ahead and stayed with the 9 for now, or we went to the ordinance situation, I think that might be better for us. But I'm just one council member, so I just wanted maybe the council to discuss it and see about making the change and see what they have to say about that. I'm willing to see it changed or to see it placed in the ordinance so that we don't have to go through the changes on the charter. So that's, I think, 2 of the options that we have.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Rogers?
So would it be difficult to take it out of the charter and leave it as an ordinance, or?
No, ma'am, and I believe that's what the city attorney recommended when he presented, was that the charter say that the number of planning and zoning commissioners would be set by ordinance. Am I remembering correctly?
Certainly, Mayor and Council. The Texas Local Government Code says if you're going to exercise zoning and you're a home rule city, you must have a planning and zoning commission. It's optional for smaller cities. It's mandatory for a home rule city. Bastrop is a home rule city. But then beyond that, it doesn't say anything about the size of planning and zoning, what sort of representatives they must be. It leaves it completely up to the city council. And overwhelmingly, in most cities, the city council addresses those questions in an ordinance. So it's unusual to find it in the home rule charter at all. It's even more unusual to have the size specified in the home rule charter. I don't know why Bastropians did that in the past. I didn't represent you then.
We're uniquely Bastrop.
You are uniquely Bastrop, preserving the past and preparing for the future. I get it. Some cities will do things like put ETJ residents on their P&Zs. All sorts of interesting things happen. And so when we discussed this, the original discussion was, should we take it out of the charter altogether and leave it up to the city council, because they can amend an ordinance every 2 to 3 weeks, versus under state law, we can only amend our charter every 2 years. And cities tend to be reluctant to go back to the voters over and over with propositions on the same thing. So we discussed removing it altogether and leaving it up to the council to establish by ordinance. But during our last conversation, the council seemed to feel more comfortable just lowering the charter mandate to at least 7. You can have 15. You can have 25 if you want to by ordinance, but the charter would limit the minimum to 7. This really is a matter of discretion for the council at this point. If you don't want to address this at all, you could adopt tonight's ordinance on second reading, deleting that proposition and directing me and the city secretary to renumber the propositions. You have that option. Otherwise, you put it forward and see what the voters choose.
So if I understand, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's you.
If I understand what Alan's saying, we could put it to, okay, now I can't word it like Alan words it.
The number of planning and zoning will be handled by ordinance?
By ordinance. Now, but they would, the citizens would still have to vote to leave it or to allow that change, correct?
If we say for it to be by ordinance, if someone votes yes, it'll be by ordinance. If they vote no, it'll stay like it is.
Is that correct?
If they vote yes with the current wording, it will just say the minimum is 7. The ordinance from a city council could leave it at 9, could raise it to 15. That becomes the discretion of the current city council based on the current environment at that time, whatever the demands are. I understand that 9 is a large number when compared to other Bastrop boards and commissions. Is 7 not the most common? 5 or 7 is the most common size of Bastrop board and commissions.
But 9's been in the charter for a long time.
That's
so.
the reason why. And that's one reason this came forward as a discussion item.
But my point being, the citizens would still get to vote.
Absolutely.
No.
We can't change the charter without
Right,
them
I'm just
voting.
saying, make sure
Absolutely.
that they still would be able to vote.
Absolutely. So to make sure I'm clear with Councilmember Rogers, someone could make a motion to change the words to be that the number will be set by ordinance, and then if the citizens vote yes, it'll be set by ordinance. If they vote no, it defaults to what's currently in there. Is that correct?
Correct. It would default to 9.
My thoughts, if I may.
Absolutely. Councilmember Jackson.
I was thinking about just deleting it, period, and then coming back and working with an ordinance to set the total number of members. And then that way it would remain the same until we set the ordinance.
It'll remain for 2 years because we can't do a charter change again for 2 years.
Right, but I'm not saying put it in the charter. I'm saying do it by ordinance and not by charter.
Okay, so you would like to change the words, not from the minimum 7, but change the words to say that it'll be set by ordinance?
No, I'd just like to delete that whole section on that altogether and then come back on a future agenda and set the ordinance, which will set the number of members on the Planning and Zoning Commission, which would mean that it would not change from what is currently in the ordinance, in the charter, and we would leave it at that until a further time when we can change the ordinance or create an ordinance which would set the number of people that would serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
So if I understand Councilmember Jackson, someone could make a motion to change Proposition I to delete any reference from the charter as to a minimum number of planning and zoning commissioners. And that is an option. You could do that tonight if there was a majority support for that.
Is that what, and that, Alan stating that accurately?
That's accurate, and after further discussion, I mean, I'm willing to make that motion that we do that, but I think there are other people that want to speak also, so.
Councilmember Crouch?
I just had a question, and I think part of this is because of the supermajority, right, that needed to be done?
Nope.
Because you would have
Completely different
5 versus
topic.
4?
Nope, different topic.
The 5 versus 4, in terms of getting a supermajority to issue a report, is that your question?
A recommendation.
A recommendation? And that's in the Code of Ordinances, which is an ordinance that the city council can amend in the future.
So
and we've
the-
discussed doing that.
And this discussion is about the charter.
Right, so.
So I have a motion?
I have a motion to remove the reference to the number of members on the Planning and Zoning Board and maybe come back at a future date to assign a number in an ordinance. Or just to strike that from the charter, and then we can talk about the rest later.
So I think, Mayor, what we have before the council is a motion to modify Proposition I to merely remove reference in the charter to the size of planning and zoning. If there's a second, you can vote on that, and then once you've disposed with that motion, you can discuss the broader issue of second reading of the charter amendment.
Do I have a motion to remove reference to the size on Proposition I?
Yes, I second that.
And so I have a motion from Councilmember Jackson, and I have a second from Councilmember Rogers. Is there any further discussion about removing the reference to size? Mayor Pro Tem Nelson.
Just some general comments. Our referencing this particular item has nothing to do with any kind of punitive measures against our existing P&Z in any way, shape, or form. And the qualification issues in there, the only qualification that I even measure in my deliberation on who we're approving from the mayor's recommendation is based on any residency requirements. The rest of it is just being an interested citizen in that there's no technical requirements on there, nor should there be. And when people show an interest in wanting to participate in the governance of their city, I'm fully supportive of what they do, and I'm fully supportive of these 3. So thank y'all.
Ditto.
Ditto.
All righty. I have some dittos, but I also have a motion from Councilmember Jackson and a second from Councilmember Rogers. And Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers?
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Borquez, I think you said there's something else we need to vote on?
So now you can discuss whether there's any other changes or questions or comments about the rest of the ordinance, putting the charter amendment slate in front of the voters. If not, then you need to have a motion to approve it on second reading.
So we're back, now we would be, if someone was so inclined, they could make a request, make a motion for approving the second reading of ordinance 2022-03 as amended by the last vote.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion from y'all make it easy because it's the same names. Councilmember Jackson and a second from Councilmember Rogers. Is there any further discussion? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers?
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you again to the Planning and Zoning Commissioners that came and spoke to us. Appreciate your service.
Make
Yes,
a comment when
Councilmember
you're
Rogers,
finished, I'm sorry.
please.
I just wanted to thank the citizens for standing up and making the comments, because unless you guys give us some feedback when things are being talked about, we don't know how you feel. So I appreciate you taking the time to come up and talk to us.
You guys get double credit this month because I know you have P&Z later as well. There you go. I'm sorry, Councilmember Jackson.
I also wanted to thank them. I had calls from several citizens that noticed that, and some members of the Planning and Zoning Board, and so I was glad to hear them speak out, and even more happy to see them here tonight. So thank you for that. We do appreciate your service, and we want you to continue to serve with integrity as you have over these past few years. Thank you.
Well said, Councilmember Jackson. Thank you so much. Councilmember Crouch?
I just wanted to say, because I was the one that made the comment in the last 2 meetings ago about the P&Z board, and I couldn't get the words back into my mouth quick enough. Mayor Schrader did a great job of pointing that out, and I have called all but one of the current planning and zoning people to apologize for what I said. So, and I'll finish up my calls, but I have called each one of the planning and zoning boards and thanked them for their service and apologized for what I said. So, and like I said, I've been calling them a little bit at a time, and I'll get the last person tomorrow. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Crouch. All right, we are done with the consent agenda. Council, we have 3 items left. Hang in there. We're on 12A, items for individual consideration. I say that, it's 8:33. Is everybody okay, or do we need a bio break? All right, they're saying rock and roll. To item 12A, consider action to approve resolution number R 2022-26 of the City of Bastrop, Texas, enacting a policy regarding the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation. City Manager Hoffman, are you going to kick this off, or are we going straight to Mr. Esch?
Mr. Esch is here, and he's prepared to answer any questions. I think this was fully explained, Council, in your agenda packet, but and everything that's being presented tonight is very consistent with the workshop we held with you on December 13th. But Mr. Esch or I are here available to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Esch, Council? Councilmember Rogers?
It's not a question. I just wanted to tell you thank you for all the time and effort that you put in. I know talking to each one of us is very time consuming and things. So, and I felt that your whole way that you did it was very thorough, at least when you talked with me. I can't tell what I talked to everybody else, but I think you did kind of got to the point of what we needed, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilmember Rogers. Any other questions or comments from council? All right, I appreciate the thoroughness. It goes 1 through 8, or 1 through 9, and you've heard that this council has no problems asking questions. So I know that you guys have worked on the document together. We did discuss it in detail in our executive session, and appreciate the thorough job. I think it really pulled everything together.
I move to approve.
I have a motion to approve from Councilmember Rogers.
12A.
Second.
And a second from Councilmember Crouch. Is there any further discussion? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Rogers?
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Thank you. Council, the motion passes unanimously. We're on item 12B.
Thank you, ma'am.
Consider action to approve resolution. Don't go too far. Consider action to approve resolution number 2022-27 of the City Council of City Bastrop, Texas, a support services agreement between the City of Bastrop, Texas, and the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation. Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Esch, I know stand for questions. Did you have any other comments that you wanted to make on this?
No, ma'am.
I think, Council, that one of the things that we appreciated in our discussion is it's important that we have clarity, that when we put things in order and we've got things in writing, it makes it a lot easier to get everybody on the same page. Councilmember Rogers, did you have a comment or question?
Well, I just wanted to thank Paul, because I know I was a pain on this one, and he took the time to listen to all my issues and figured out a way to make it all come together, so I appreciate him not being too angry with all my problems.
Never.
Councilmember Crouch?
Oh, no, sorry. Still on from all of that.
All right.
Move to approve.
Okay.
Councilmember Jackson?
I'll second it then.
All
I was
right.
gonna say in that case, I'll make a
Y'all,
motion.
you
but-
guys are hitting it tonight. All right, I have a motion from Councilmember Rogers, a second from Councilmember Jackson. If there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Rogers?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. The motion passes unanimously. Somebody asked me how long council was going to last, and I guessed 8:30, didn't I, Yusuf?
Thank you, Mayor.
8:37. I'm doing pretty darn good because I know.
I have a feeling this is going to go pretty good. All right, 12C, yay for the civil engineers that hang out at city council meetings. Consider action to approve resolution number R 2022-20 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving a professional services contract with Garver LLC for the Old Iron Bridge project and Loop 150 corridor study in the amount not to exceed $198,334 as attached in Exhibit A, authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents, providing for a repealing clause and establishing an effective date. Ms. Bills.
Good evening. So what we have before you guys tonight is a contract for engineering services from Garver, and it's going to be over the next 2 years. It's got several different kind of phases. The first, and being the thing we're going to hit the ground running on, is for the Old Iron Bridge to pursue grant funds. So you'll see that the scope in the contract is actually broken down into different tasks. So it sounds like a big number, but that's over 2 years, and it covers different aspects of their assistance in grants and our corridor study. So Garver is a design firm that provides engineering, architectural, and environmental services. They were picked because they have a very strong background in these type of projects. They have experience in a previous project on a historic bridge, securing grant funding for that preservation project. And they've already specifically identified the RAISE grant, which is one that was just announced officially, so that's why we're going to hit the ground running this Friday. So what we're looking at is the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. It provides over $1 trillion in funding. There's a number of different projects that are eligible through this. With the RAISE grant, they just issued the Notice of Funding Opportunity at the end of January, and the application is due in April. So it's a pretty quick turnaround time. Luckily, we've already done the initial bridge report that they're going to work off of, and they're going to prepare that application for us. And they're here to speak, and they can go over more detail. The other aspect of this is we've been talking with CAMPO, the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, the regional transportation authority for this area. And they're real excited to work with us on doing a corridor study. So that's a specific plan that looks at transportation, land use, in a very specific area. So we're looking at the corridor that starts Loop 150 at 71 to the west and then goes all the way down to where it intersects back with 71 on the east. So that entire corridor, it's really kind of the core of the downtown. It's the main, and when people come into town, that's usually where they drive through. So we're going to be looking at specific projects, direction for that corridor. That's going to be a $200,000 value provided by CAMPO. They're going to provide through their funds and through their staff that work. So you'll be seeing that coming back to the city. We'll be having some public meetings, getting input from the citizens on that corridor. Once we get that plan complete, it'll take about a year. Then the next step of that is to turn the implementation steps of that plan into actual capital improvement projects, and that's where Garver will be assisting. So they'll be involved during the process. So when we have those recommendations, we'll be able to look for more of the federal funding and turn those into actual capital improvement projects for the city. You see the total. So like I said, it's broken out into some different tasks. So the Loop 150 corridor plan support, and then developing those recommended projects. That's the kind of second phase. First phase is that RAISE grant application. So my recommendation is to approve, and the contractor is here to give get more background on what this entails.
You absolutely have to introduce your team because you guys have sat here all night, so make sure you do that as a part of your presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Mayor, City Council, City Manager, thank you for having us. My name is Susan Chavez, and I'm with Garver. And yes, we do have a number of people on the project team, including Kirsten McCullough, who's our grant specialist and our grant lead, Glenn Gregory, who's our office lead, and Stephen Johnson, who's our roadway lead, and Wendy Travis, I believe, is in the back somewhere. There she is. Who's our planning and environmental lead for Garver.
She's planning to get to the door faster than the rest of y'all.
She's got a great spot. So I just want to say thank you for having us here. We're last on the agenda, so I want to be quick. Jennifer's already covered a lot. But we're very excited to be here to help you guys try to find some funding for the Old Iron Bridge. And as she said, we've identified some federal grant funding that seems to be a good match. And so I'm going to have Kirsten talk about that in a little bit. But I did want to give you just a little bit of background about Garver. Like she said, we're an engineering, planning, architectural, environmental firm. We have about 900 employees in 35 offices across the United States, 11 offices in Texas, including Austin and Georgetown. So we are local. And we have a multidisciplined team put together for this effort. I am the project manager. I have a planning and environmental background. Kirsten McCullough, also planning. Mike Spade, who's not here tonight, but he has a traffic background, will be our traffic leads. And then Stephen, I've already introduced as our roadway lead. And we also have Blake Staten, who's our bridge lead. So he'll be providing some input from that perspective. And then we, like Jennifer said, we have a strong background working with municipalities, state, federal government, and particularly with grants. And Kirsten will talk a little bit about her experience and success with that. I did, and I am not forwarding my slides, but I'm going the other way, sorry. Well, I did want to just mention the Infrastructure Investments and Job Act funding, especially for surface transportation. The US DOT, as you may know, has been given $567.4 billion to spend over 5 years. That's $274 billion over current funding levels. So, and about $100 billion of that is for grants, and there are that money is being distributed between 25 grant programs, some of which are new, some of which are old. So that's kind of what we're pinpointing for the Old Iron Bridge, the RAISE grant, which is an existing grant. And as Jennifer said, it was released just last week, and so we're ready to hit the ground running on that. So that is probably the first, the immediate task. But then the secondary task is to also participate in the corridor study for Loop 150. And then any projects identified out of that study, we would also look for potential grant opportunities. And so right now I'm going to have Kirsten come up and talk about her grant experience.
No, you're fine. Thanks, Susan. Madam Mayor, Council, thanks for having us tonight. I'll echo Susan for welcoming us, and I will try to get to where we are at. So the Old Iron Bridge, as Susan mentioned, is going to be the first focus of our project. It is a significant community and historic resource for Bastrop. It has been listed in the National Register of Historic Places. You can see its imagery as you go around town, even in the slide backgrounds of what you guys are showing tonight. So its importance is significant, and it's been determined structurally deficient, and of course is not in service currently. So we understand the city does want to rehabilitate that bridge to serve as a pedestrian facility in some manner, and that's going to be important because it is a critical link across a physical barrier for pedestrians and other multimodal traffic. So the RAISE grant that Susan mentioned is a program that has been around for several years, and we've helped several agencies with grant applications under this program. Every year the criteria change a little bit depending on the administration's priorities. What we see this year is very similar to last year. So we're familiar with what those criteria are going to be. You can see some of the goals of the program on the slide, but really what the administration is focused on now are projects that increase multimodal connectivity, increase transportation choices for communities, especially for historically disadvantaged or underserved communities. Those communities tend to rely on non-vehicular modes somewhat more than other communities. So we think this is an excellent project candidate for this program. There is $1.5 billion available in fiscal year 2022 for the RAISE grant program. That's about 50% more than there was last year. So we anticipate a lot of applications. There's $25 million maximum award. What we saw in the study that was done on the bridge about 3 years ago was a cost estimate of around $10 million. So this fits really well with the targeted funding amounts that the RAISE program offers. I did just want to mention the Bridgeport Bridge, which was the program that, or the project that Jennifer mentioned that we did help the Oklahoma Department of Transportation on, where it was a rehabilitation of a historic structure, a lot of goals for economic improvement, for increasing tourism economics, and that project was awarded $22 million through the RAISE, or it was called BUILD in 2020, but through that program. So the schedule and process, like they mentioned also, is going to be pretty quick. We have an April 14th deadline. So there are several steps that we'll be following. These look linear, but they're really all going to kind of happen at the same time just because of the time frame that we're working under. So we'll be talking to Campo and TxDOT. Their support on the project, even though it is a city facility, will be important to have that support. We'll be doing some data collection. We'll be doing a funding strategy and schedule that we'll be working with the city staff to develop. We'll be crafting that narrative to tell that story for the grant reviewers, and then ultimately submitting by that April 14th deadline. I think that's all we have, so we'll take questions if there are any.
We got to get it. I'm so excited about this one. I can hardly stand it. Mayor Pro Tem Nelson was talking about the goals and getting the bridge actually funded, and for tourism and for so many things. I can't even hardly stand it. Councilmember Jackson.
I've been so excited about the bridge project because I was on the council when we built the new bridge that's beside the old one, and at one time it was going to be demolished. And it's so iconic, and growing up I remember running across that bridge as a child and everything, so we had to keep it. So in order to make sure that we were able to keep it, we made it a park. We designated it as a park so that we could keep it, in other words. And so there were a lot of things there. So the funding has been the issue over the years, and now with this grant possibility, I am so excited about it, and I applaud you all for coming in and being there for us, and I know you'll do well, and I'm sure the whole council and the community is happy because it is iconic. It's something that's, like you said, it's on the background of our stationery and everything. It's part of authentic Bastrop. And so thank you for that. And
thank you, Councilmember Jackson. Mayor Pro Tem Nelson.
I want to commend the city manager and city staff for their work on this. I mean, this is a perfect example of collaboration and communication and flat hard-headedness in this, because this is an important project for our community. It checks all the boxes on multimodality. It checks the boxes on pedestrian crossing, for parkland, for bicycle. It checks all the boxes at the state and the federal level. And that's one of the reasons that we're happy that the mayor reads on a consistent basis and found out about that project y'all did up north. And we want to replicate that here in some way, shape, or form, because it is an iconic structure and it means a lot to the city. So thank you.
Councilmember Crouch.
Just same echo as from Doc and Law. I'm glad to see the one in Oklahoma was already done, and we're very, very similar, I think, in nature to that. So I think everybody here and that's in this room and that's listening is real happy that we're got this opportunity to get some funding for that bridge. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilmember Crouch.
Mayor, if I may.
Absolutely.
It is completely appropriate that the last agenda item for Mayor Pro Tem Nelson is this topic. Mayor Pro Tem, you've done a lot of thinking and great suggestions on how we approach this whole thing. I mentioned earlier how we have benefited from your expertise and experience here. You have laid out the groundwork for getting this done. Thank you for the compliment. I think being hard-headed is a compliment, but I think he directed that at Trey. But seriously, Trey made that initial connection with you guys and thought, hey, this is a good fit, and has always had a good concept of what to be done here. But Mayor Pro Tem Nelson, we've had a lot of conversations that led to this day, and I wanted to publicly thank you for that.
Thank you, City Manager. I too, we learned about transportation credits, the Campo Platinum planning process. All of that was because Lyle kept saying there is a way to get this, sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Nelson kept saying there is a way to get this done. So with that, Mayor Pro Tem Nelson.
Madam Mayor, move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve from Mayor Pro Tem Nelson and a second from Councilmember Jackson. Madam Secretary, if you will call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch?
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous. Thank you for spending your evening with us. We are on the top of page 4. It is adjournment. Councilmember Peterson.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion to adjourn from Councilmember Peterson at 8:53, a second from Councilmember Rogers. We are adjourned. Thank you so very much.